Now today we want to have a conversation about matters clean cooking energy. Just what kind of stoves are you using, if any, and what can be done to ensure that people are cooking but safely cooking. To have this conversation is Kelvin Wambugu. He is the client relationship manager at Ban Manufacturing. Thank you for joining us.
Asante sana. Thank you for hosting me.
Karibu sana. Now 76% of Kenya's population uses biomass, traditional biomass, for energy. This means that very many people in this country are using charcoal or firewood. And in this conversation, Kevin, just give us an overview of how things are in the market right now.
So, as you've said, yes, the dominant sources of fuel for cooking in this country is biomass, charcoal, firewood, and together with that comes different technologies of using those fuels. And by technologies, we are going far back as the three-stone fires that most rural communities and families are using. Then there is the various charcoal stoves that are in the market. And to give a brief overview of the journey of charcoal stoves, there is what we will call a juakali stove that was made of sheet metal. It's very old, I think. Several generations have used that. And then there is, of course, the improved, slightly improved stove that is the Kenya ceramic jiko that has been around for 30 to 35 years now. And for what we will, I'll delve into more is now the newer technologies, and they are higher tiers of cook stoves that have been developed over the last 1 decade or so, is when the intensity for and acceptance for that technology took traction, and there is good reception. To answer the question about the market, people need these stoves, and I think I will explain more and more the issues that are surrounding that.
Before we get into those the new generation jikos now, could you just give us an overview of the impact of using the old jikos?
So when you think of, you have to frame our minds back to the villages and the nature of those houses and the sizes. And then we are using predominantly three-stone fires. A typical home during the time that they're preparing meals is a cloud of smoke. For various reasons, especially now that it is raining, firewood has been rained on, it is not burning very well. And it has health implications. That is the number one that I could think of. And globally, because this problem is not a local problem, it's not a Kenya problem. It is a problem that is faced by at least 1/3 of the global population. They don't have the proper technologies for and the proper fuels for cooking. And we are talking about deaths that are caused by indoor air pollution. We are talking about respiratory diseases that are attendant to inhaling these. And let's not forget, it's also a bit biased and against one gender. It is the women that will be found in kitchen a lot of the times. They are the ones affected by this smoke, and then there are little children who are more vulnerable and have not developed the proper resistance. Their lungs are not well developed. So when those diseases catch them, most often than not, they are killing more people than than the popular media or that is acknowledged. We're talking about as many people as probably a disease like malaria or more. And therefore, apart from the health implication, there's the cutting down of trees. Right now, it is no longer sustainable. You know, it is not controlled. There are no trees being planted for fuel purposes. So when people are felling trees, then it is our forests that are getting depleted very quickly. I also have testimony because when I was growing up in the village, I would be left as a little boy. Every evening, the women will go fetch firewood. But today, even you will struggle to find someone willing to sell, not longer collecting that has fallen in the forest or anywhere. People who have a few trees are not willing to sell it anymore. And therefore, people spend more again. This is a contribution to poverty, really. One of the, again, unacknowledged forms of poverty is energy poverty. And it is one of those things that really need to be addressed. So we are talking about health implications, economic implications, and ecological implications for our world. The CO2 emissions, the carbon emissions, about 25% of the black carbon that is emitted to the environment is from cooking in our homes because of these poor technologies, or the three-stone fires and the not so improved cook stoves.
All right. So as you've rightly put it, that there are no trees being planted for fuel use, but the demand is there. You know, people will always cook, and the quota that uses up the 76% or more that uses this type of cooking will still need to cook. So what can be done to ensure that the demand is brought down, or the quality is improved for clean cooking now?
Number one, we have to acknowledge that you will not change people's behavior overnight, right? And people will still have to cook. And remember that alongside cooking are other needs that are fulfilled. At the moment you're cooking, you're warming up your houses and all that, right? But what needs to be done is, so let me go back a few weeks back. We just came from COP26. Global leadership was all there to address the issues of climate. And one of the things that, one of the areas that was touched on was clean cooking. It's very positive. It's very good that the global leadership, all kinds of countries, even the first world countries, are coming together to discuss these issues and the challenges that are therein. So that is a first step in the positive direction. What, however, needs to also be brought into consideration is the fact that as we look forward to, for example, now there is a commitment to moving away from biomass fuel by the year 2028. It's very good, and it's what everybody dreams for, including us at Burn Manufacturing. But we must be supported in that journey. And what I keep saying is the issue about clean cooking has to be addressed up as a public policy issue. This has to be addressed for you know, over the decades, the development, as we're seeing, since the development of the Kenya ceramic jiko in the early to mid 80s, it has been done primarily by the agencies that were supporting that are non-governmental agencies. So they will have their internal documents, their project papers and all that for helping communities. We have people like the GIZ that have been very supportive of that, of the sector. And they have the financing, yeah? They get their sources of funds from wherever and they bring it in there. But this problem that we are facing today can no longer be left to just throwing money at it, or the NGOs or the private entities, companies that are developing the various technologies. Government must take this up as a public policy issue. It must be deliberate. We are happy now, again, the president of Kenya has made that commitment of moving away from biomass by the year 2028. When we were hosting when we were having the Clean Cooking Week, the keynote speech also reaffirmed that commitment by the government of, by the year 2028, let's not do charcoal and fuel and firewood, these biomass fuels. But now it has to support a journey. It is gradual steps. We cannot wish that we wake up in the year 2028, it's not tomorrow, and find ourselves using electric pressure cookers or ethanol-based fuels, these very clean technologies and fuels. It has to go step by step. We need government to look into it, from especially the tax regimes that we have.
Okay.
We cannot in one breath say we are committed to clean cooking and at the same time cripple that commitment with taxes that make the jikos unaffordable. Yeah. For example, BAN has been committed to, BAN produces all the GCOs for both the local and import markets right here in Ruiru. And we've tried our best to keep the end user, the price at which an end user will get that GCO at a supermarket to be as low as possible. But it is hurting the business, the sustainability of the business, because we are now subsidizing from our margins. We have to cut our margins so thin for the end users to afford and therefore sustain demand. And that is mainly because there have been taxes that are levied on our GCOs, and then it is very inconsistent. This year you have VAT on the GCOs, next year you don't have VAT on the GCOs. So that lack of consistency in policy destabilizes even the investor confidence is affected by that.
Okay, so that is the part of the producers like yourself. How about now the common mwananchi, the user of these GCOs? Because achieving this in 7 years, considering the poverty levels in Kenya, there's rising cost of living, that means people have less money to spend. So is 7 years possible?
Yes, I want to say yes. And I have to connect that to the point I was just making earlier, that we've come a long way from the Juakali GCO made of purely sheet metal, the entire stove, to the improvements that were supported by GIZ and other organizations, the SNV, and projects such as energizing development. All those projects and the efforts that are also being done by partners like the Clean Cooking Association of Kenya and the Clean Cooking Alliance that is more global. We've come a long way, and we are hoping that the stakeholders, especially now, even going back to that COP26, we don't want people to wish away biomass stoves. For those, even within those 7 years, because the preparations that need to be made for people to afford, let's say, electric pressure cookers, the level of electrifications of homes, whether it is main grid or solar, that is not going to happen tomorrow morning. It's not going to happen in 3 years' time. So it requires a lot of investments in various forms, financial investment or even policy development, time that is required for all that. So adopting clean cooking is going to be done, and it is very possible. It's, as we said, now the commitment is global. Within 7 years, it is enough time. Only that we need to know that we support the improved technologies that, as they exist today, with the view that we are creating the right environment, business environment, policy environment to support development of new technologies. And I'll hope as we go on, we will be able to show the audience some of the things that BAN is doing, BAN Manufacturing at least is doing in the today, as the solutions that we have for consumers today and where we are heading to, because for example, we have a very robust R&D department. A lot of research is being done and development of products to fit the problems or to solve the energy solutions or the cooking solutions as we see them today and in the future. So, but we have to, our investors, the owners of the business need to feel confidence that they can have that long-termism in their commitment to their finances and their business models, knowing that the environment allows them. But 7 years is not a little length of time if you think of it. It's good that you brought up the issue of R&D, because innovation to solve this problem is very important. How you are in the private sector.
Can the government support innovation in that sector, even for yourself and other players?
You know, the government is ever going to be in tricky situation. It's a catch-22 for the government. You have to give them that.
Okay.
And let me illustrate. The Ministry of Energy here in Kenya is very supportive of our the projects and the industry, the sector. Let me call it the clean cooking sector. It sends representatives in all our forums. They have, for example, there is access to solar program that called COSAP that is ongoing. All that by the ministry. So, in that regard, we will say government is supportive. It's giving us the necessary. There is a ministry that is committed to it, the Ministry of Energy. If you ask the people in the forestry departments, they are also going to be supportive because they want solutions that mitigate the cutting down of trees. The one that maybe struggles to understand or to strike the right balance in that whole equation of government support and what the private sector is doing goes back to treasury, because lots of our handicaps come
Taxation
from there. You know, taxation. If I want to talk on behalf of all the players in the sector, not just now urban manufacturing, and by the year 2028, again, back to your question, and if the solutions that the players or the private sector are innovating around have to do with, let's say, ethanol-based fuels. And then you look at the taxes that are placed there, that are imposed on those fuels, and then you impose taxes on now the cooker itself, and so many other things. You're actually making it that 7 years may be a little time if people have to struggle with that, because if there are no people, if investors are, and innovators are not fully committed and they are not fully confident that the environment is right, they will also take a break. They will be jittery. They will be looking around. Is it Kenya? Is Kenya the right place to be? Is it the next country that has favorable tax regimes and all that? So, but government, yes, can and must support innovation. And now, because this has moved away from being, as I mentioned, the president of Kenya has made a commitment. So how is his commitment going to be made or to be met if his own government or the government that comes, between now and 2028, we will have had a number of government officials, even president. There's going to be a transition in there. And if they do not make sure that innovation and there's a necessity. It is necessary that we improve the technologies that we use for cooking, and therefore innovation has to be part and parcel, and it has to be, and it must be public policy. It is no longer for urban manufacturing as a private entity or from GIZ as a supporting entity and SNV. They cannot do it by themselves.
Okay. Yeah. This journey as we walk towards 2028, the Kenya is still struggling to meet the 10% coverage of forests, of course. We are about 7.2%. What should be done to ensure that there is sustainable production? Because production of firewood, charcoal will be there for a while in Kenya at least. So what can be done to ensure sustainable production or even bring down the demand?
So back to the question of innovation. Today, the sector is struggling with, you mean by consumption of charcoal and firewood, right?
Yes.
But we have other sources of much better and improved fuels that will use the same technologies. Yeah. For example, briquettes and pellets. again, because we are in this together as a sector, I should bring out something that we are trying to lobby. The Clean Cooking Association of Kenya is trying to lobby, together with Ban Manufacturing and other entities. We don't need to use firewood and charcoal without any proper controls. If government makes it easy and possible to make briquettes and pellets, today they are based on purely on the size of that one piece of fuel. Pellets today are taxed, a hefty tax, right? That needs to go away, because they are not taxing briquettes, but they are taxing pellets. It's more like, if you think of it, how a pellet compares to a briquette, it's as simple as this. You're taxing a 1 kg bag of sugar, but not taxing a 90 kg bag of the same sugar. So that kind of inconsistency and incoherence is what we will not keep quiet about that. So that when BAN manufactures and produces GCOA, we know that there is a ready partnership with a pellet producer or briquette producer that now is synergy towards the same objective. BAN will have met its objective further of clean cooking, because we gave you a clean cooking stove. That is GCOA. And there is ready briquettes or pellets or such kind of fuels that are there. And BAN, being one of the leaders, probably the strongest actor in the clean cooking space in Kenya, can enter into partnerships, all those kinds of people. So yes, we don't need, it is not necessary that we ban charcoal. Right. Or it's just having the right environment for producing and innovating around cleaner, more sustainable. That can be done even tomorrow now. It doesn't have to wait for the 7 years up to 2028. To lapse,
yes. Yeah. We are talking about matters clean cooking, and maybe you have a GCO there at home and you're wondering, how can I move from using this charcoal or using this kind of a stove to a safer or better or cleaner type of a stove. Now, Kevin, you have brought a number of clean cooking stoves. Yes. Let's say that. Could you just speak about them and how these work and maybe what they will do for the consumer, or what they do for the consumer?
Yes, most definitely.
Go ahead. They are on your screen. They'll be on your screen in a little bit.
Okay. So, BAN produces at the moment we have what we call GCOA. GCOA burns charcoal. We also have KUNIOCOA that efficiently burns firewood. And what our products do is that they are reducing the amount of charcoal that will be used on a regular GCO, the KCJ, or lower tiers stoves. Compared to those, GCOA saves you and the households more than 50% of fuel, as you can see right there on the screen. So what the viewer will see on the very left is what we call GCOA Classic. That is our longest, it has been produced longest by our factory in Ruiru. I wish they had turned it around so that there are some features, there are some nice features that people will see. But next to it is also another GCOA called GCOA Extra. So those two are using charcoal, and as I've said, they are reducing that charcoal consumption by over 50%. Indoor air pollution, again, compared to the very low tiered charcoal stoves, the KCJ, and lower than that, we're talking about 70% reduction in smoke. When we have had home visits, or when we go to look at the problems, as I said, we do a lot of market research. There are people who will tell you that they could never use a charcoal stove in their houses because there were headaches. Someone told us their kids were fainting. But with the adoption of our solutions, they are now able to cook as a family together. There is no that. So we've reduced that indoor air pollution for families. And if you know the situation here in especially in Nairobi and the peri-urban areas, it's small homes, very small spaces where you share as a family. Maybe the ventilation is not the very best. So our solutions help in that also. And again, now for our universe, when you reduce if you cut the amount of charcoal that you require by 50%, that is 50% less trees that will be cut for production of charcoal. One product that was not on the screen is now the kuniokoa. That one is using firewood. If you again back to the village, a whole load of firewood that was fetched in an afternoon will be consumed cooking dinner and maybe breakfast. And then the cycle goes on and on and on.
Yes.
When you use our kuniokoa, you need 2 pieces. Even its entire design and everything is to ensure that you will use 2 pieces of firewood, and they will burn so efficiently that every meal, all the kind of cooking. Houses that are using kuniokoa, that have adopted kuniokoa and moved away from the 3-stone fire, no longer have that black soot that accumulates on the roof. So this only thing that will betray that this is a kitchen is the small space where the jiko stays, where it sits. And of course, because of it, depending on how disciplined one is, you may never know, because there are people who will finish cleaning, cooking, clean their jiko, clean their space very well, but over time you will know, okay, there is fire that happens around this place. Very small space. So yeah, that is the kuniokoa for you. There was another one. Now that is the future. Maybe it's been obstructed from the screen, but that is where we are heading. Electric pressure cookers. Again, burn, as we've said, is driven by a very robust R&D. And we are not just going out there picking up stoves from China or whatever and bringing them to a market with just changing the brand name. We are actually examining those stoves, those technologies, breaking them down and solving. Thank you. It's now on the screen. When we have that kind of R&D, that stove is going to be very different from what you'll just go into any other shop and buy, because that was made elsewhere, ililetwa, and you're told buy. Ours has to be re-engineered, redesigned to fit the challenges and the problems that are facing our communities today. Yes.
So like the one which is on the screen, what does it do for energy saving and for the consumer?
So for a very long time, people thought that for you to cook using electricity, you have to use that plate that comes with your gas cooker. Most of the gas cookers have always that one plate. What this is doing is diversifying what you can do, what you can cook. So you can all methods of cooking, from frying, baking, name them, you can do them on an electric pressure cooker. It literally, you will not notice your meter move. There's been that tradition of fear that cooking with electricity is expensive, it consumes
energy.
And then today, when now the cost of a unit of electricity is very high, people may want to be very averse. But where we are heading and the innovations that we're making are such that you will not, your meter will, even if you're using the digital meter that shows you the number of units, you will not notice that difference. So it's going to be very, very cheap to cook using this. And then you will be able to cook all kinds of meals. I cannot think of a meal that stove cannot make, including baking. So if the government stays committed to its own statements, policy statements, ban is readier than 20 again. We don't have to wait for 2028. Ban is ready to come to bring that solution much closer. We are a matter of even months. It's just very small tweaks here and there, and then environment allows us, and we dive in.
Right. Let's talk about financing for the sector, because even maybe innovators have ideas, they want to get into the sector, and they require financing. How is the credit market for this sector?
Let me talk about that, and especially from the demand side. The one way Kenya has a very rich, let's say, microfinance, a very strong sector. It has empowered communities. A lot of people have been able to take their children to school because of the microfinances. Household improvements of their homes, building homes, the items you will find in the house, sofa sets and all that, thanks to the microfinances. So through these various product loans, there is an opportunity. It has not developed properly. Without mentioning names, I only know with a lot of confidence one microfinance institution that fully has taken up clean cooking products. If you go, they have a loan product for that. Majority of the others really are still not well developed. And what you find is, you had mentioned this, the purchasing power of Kenyans is shrinking. Just read a consumer insight report for FMCG, you know, those essentials that every household needs. And people are foregoing those. The report was showing that now people are having to go, not take up some of the essentials, they just do without. So by the time they start thinking of improved cook stoves and the affordability, now that becomes a bit lower in their priorities. But with financing, microfinance financing, you will find that people can afford this thing over a long duration of time. There are loans that can be 6 months, others. The region around, for example, Kitui is one of the best when it comes to adoption of renewable energy, because they have these community kind of small spaces that they have community banks. I think they call them FSAs. And those have empowered. I don't think there is a household in Kitui that does not have a solar, where they don't have electricity, main grid electricity, or a clean cook stove, thanks to that. So with that kind of developed law, when all the microfinance institutions are able to develop maybe something like is being done by the KWFT, they are very good at that. They are able to deliver stoves, and across the country, everywhere there is one of them, their branches, you can find a jikokoa. When all of them serving the various communities across the country are able to produce sustainable loan portfolios, loan products for clean cooking, there is not going to be pressure. Affordability, you see, is a function of how will I pay for it? It's not so much about how much do I earn. Yeah, if you're sure that you can pay for whatever consumer product you want, and you're given ample time to pay in small installments without prohibitive interest rates, you will take it up. And that is probably going to be another area that the regulators have to really make it easy for banks or microfinances when they are developing the loan products for clean cooking, have to be aligned with now this global narrative of clean cooking and the needs and the policy, the public policy around it, so that it's not very rigid. It is not, for example, restricted by another product that you already have with that institution. If you took a school fees loan, it should not be barred from taking another small, topping it up for clean cooking. But interest rates also have to, it's not about lowering the cost of cooking and then increasing the cost of interest. It's that becomes a zero-sum game for the end user. But financing through those microfinances, I think, is the way to go.
How about now financing for the innovators or the industry players?
No, number one, financing is for the producers or manufacturers. We would want, for the sake of our economy, our local economy, let the money be local. Let banks make loans cheap. My friend, taking a loan in this country, you can't. If you want to have a loan for a business, it becomes very expensive. Loans here are very expensive, and we have to acknowledge that. But I would want to see a situation where business loans are affordable, cheap, and therefore we have investors borrowing locally, and let it circulate here. I don't think one of the reasons why you find some of these solutions coming from abroad, as I said, ban manufacturer is the only one that is producing everything from scratch right here in Ruiru. Everyone else has to bring in from some country where maybe labor is cheaper, cost of capital is cheaper, and all that attendant issues are surrounding financing. But when we talked to some treasury officials the other day, they want to they want to talk about making or enhancing industrialization through whatever sector. So there may be room for improvement, but financing at the moment is expensive for manufacturers or producers if it has to be sourced locally. So people have to think of alternatives, investors from elsewhere or money loans from out there.
Okay. We are talking about clean cooking energy here in studio with Kevin Wambogo. He is the client relationship manager at Ban Manufacturing. We want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, this conversation continues. Do stay with us.
Like magic. You know what? From today, I'll be manifesting soft life in my life.
My friend, why are you hitting my car like a matatu?
Sorry, I'm very sorry.
What do you want?
Guys, I've been hacked. My account has been hacked. So how am I supposed to compete now?
Julia, do you have wearing dresses?
No, I like wearing animal skin. What kind of question is that?
From today henceforth, you should look at me as your biggest competitor in this institution. Yes.
Now, and from today onwards,
Yes.
you should wash your back. Okay? Yes. You young man, you should wash your back. Okay?
My name is Sambros Lutulai and I'm all day for you.
One of Africa's most elusive cats, the leopards.
So many scientists, they are focusing in other animals, they are focusing in other cats, they are focusing in other species, and they are forgetting leopard.
This is an area that the leopard clearly comes to. It's a natural salt lick. We've seen the leopard's footprints. We've also seen footprints of other animals, including baboons and impalas, and these are some of their favorite prey.
One mzee told me that there is a black leopard that is just found in your area. Few months, we got the black leopard in our camera traps.
You're arrogant because you're rich. When you find yourself separated from your money, you'll learn.
We don't even know him. We were just curious. Please, go ahead. You'll let him stay here with you?
Look at him. What do you think I should do?
Do you know him? So what is this place? I'll say it one more time. I don't want to deal with you, so get lost.
Figure out how to win Jai Joy's heart and get him to kick An Ching-wan to the curb.
Why are you here?
You betrayed me.
用一段故事建筑一座城堡，回忆放进去后就不再打。
Many thanks for staying with BizCheck here on Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum and Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. In studio, we are having a conversation about clean cooking energy. And Kevin Wambugu, a client relationship manager at Ban Manufacturing, is with us. Thank you for staying with us. Let's talk about the HR in this sector. You know, the skill set that is available. How have you, especially say in Ban and in your experience, how do you see the skill set in the clean cooking energy sector?
So Ban being, let's say, a manufacturing entity, you realize that Kenya has a very wealthy skill set. The youth in this country are very well endowed and they are hardworking. People need jobs, and when they are given those opportunities, they take them up and run with it. We are not a lazy population. Another thing is that skill set is not limited to one gender. If you visit our factory, I think 60% of our workforce on the floor of that factory are women. When you come to the office side, finance, human resource departments, market research, every department is very well balanced. And so skills and the need and the agility to perform the duties that are given to them, it's there, and it's encouraging, and also that commitment and availability of people across gender, so that it's 50-50 or even 60% in some cases, inclining towards women. It's therefore shows that it's not something that requires importation of labor. You don't need to bring in labor. You can find a 360. Everything that an organization would require is readily available, with the whatever technical supports that are there.
This is one sector which largely uses technical skills, you know, and the government has been very intentional in bringing up and ensuring that the technical and vocational education training centers are taking their position in the education sector, right? So are there any special skills that people need, or special education that people need to work in this sector?
You know, training is ongoing, and it can be both formal or informal or on-the-job training. So actually, either in school or on the job. And as subscribers to NITA, for example, we therefore are keeping in touch and keeping up with whatever technical solutions that there are, or skills that can be adapted. But yeah, the more you have technical people in the, or rather the government supporting technical courses in the tertiary institutions, the better for all sectors, not just clean cooking. You need that, the craftsmanship, I think, is important. But that does not say that even now the other side of it, I think there is, as you said, the government is talking a lot about the TVETs, but let's not forget also the wealth of knowledge and understanding of systems that comes with now when you go out there into the even universities, and understanding and conceptualizing solutions is also, so all of them have a part to play.
All right. Yeah. Right. We will continue with this conversation in a bit, but now we want to take you to the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, where the elections are happening. The Secretary General of NOC Kenya, Francis Mutuku, is speaking. Let's listen into what he has to say.
And maybe just to mention special mention of Winter Olympics. Right now, we have one athlete who was qualified as we speak to the Winter Olympics again in Beijing in February. She participated in the previous Winter Olympics 2018 in South Korea, and she also participated in the World Skiing Championship earlier this year in February. She's doing very well. We know next year she'll be going as a participant. We pray and hope that by 2026 Winter Olympics, which will be in Italy, she'll go there as a competitor, because that's the long-term vision we have to keep having for all our athletes. The rest are just the results of Commonwealth African Games, where we were happy to work very closely with Kenya National Sports Council to be able to deliver a team successfully. We were able to send a teams to beach volleyball, to beach games, African beach games. We are not lucky for the World Beach Games, but we are hoping next time Kenya can be able to send to the World Beach Games and all the others. The others is just the youth games, where we had good representation, and Anoka Zone 5, and the rest. This is an area which I would need to just expound a little bit more, because we keep talking about it. By the time we came in 2017, a lot of the International Olympic Committee solidarity programs had been suspended. They had been suspended because of lack of reporting. And through an engagement probably for 1 to 1.5 years' time, we were able to make reports of all the outstanding reports in terms of the International Olympic Committee, and then we were put back into the Olympic Solidarity Program. The Olympic Solidarity Program, as most of you are aware, gives money pretty much like how NGOs in Kenya operate, based on a particular project. So once that project is finished, a report is required, then the rest of the money can be sent. And we were able to complete those outstanding reports and start benefiting. And we are happy that consistently in the last 3 years, we've been able to get at least 40 programs happening. We believe that the accounts will be able to represent that. Over 300,000 US dollars has been utilized through the different programs. We have over 3,000 beneficiaries, not in terms of just numbers. We can be able to give names of the beneficiaries who were able to do it. We have athletes, 180 athletes who have been trained. More importantly, on the athlete transition, which I'll be talking about later, we have individual athlete scholarships, especially the ones which were for Tokyo. and we have team scholarships, where we had about 3 teams benefit from this scholarship. Very important that as much as we focused on athlete-centered approach, we knew that an athlete is not by themselves. We need a team around them. And one of the areas which we focused on was to develop coaches and coaching programs. And I'd just like to mention, as you can see, that's just a representation of a lot of other programs to develop coaches which have happened. The one I would like to mention is the one for Kenya Hockey Union through the international body, where they came and put up national training programs. I think now they are moving towards focusing on the short version of hockey, the 5-a-side. We all see how Zambia has done very, very well, going to the top in terms of that version. And I believe Kenya Hockey Union found it necessary, important to be able to focus on that. That's not the end. As we speak now, Kenya Handball Federation has benefited from an equivalent program. And what they want to do is they want to train coaches across the country so they can be able to have one system of coaching and therefore one system of Kenyan play. The rest was taekwondo, tennis, and then strength and conditioning. We had a sports science program, because obviously we all know that sports is moving towards a scientific way of approaching, and the more we train our coaches, the more they can be able to implement and impact our athletes in the way we need that to be done. In terms of the sports administrators, I think this is an indication. A lot of you have been here previously because we've been having administrators courses, training people to be administrators, training top level, middle level, and we believe that should always continue. Scholarships, again, just like with commissions, at the beginning, whenever an invitation would go, you'd find that the response was not as good. And we started opting to going beyond federations and probably making it public so that we can get more and more people. But in the last 18 months, there has been a lot of uptake of the scholarship. We've realized that within the federations, there are people who have extremely good qualifications. And when these, especially postgraduate programs, are availed, we need to reach out to as many people within our federation so they can be able to benefit. And a number of people have been able to benefit through that. Almost every year, these programs are there, and we hope they can continue being there and being taken advantage of, more importantly. We had a treasurers meeting, for those who know, to build and develop the capacity of our treasurers so they can understand the reporting structures, but also have a consistent way of running our federations. The person you see there is William Nanjaro, who benefited from a scholarship program. Why we have put that picture is because he was able to come and make a presentation to what we call the game changers and the Commonwealth Games. It means somebody goes there, gets scholarships, and brings the knowledge back to the country. So he was able to come and train youngsters of around 18 to 23 years in terms of the knowledge they have. The International Olympic Committee program has a lot of programs under the medical field. This is an area federations need to take advantage of, developing their support system of athletes, especially the medical field, to be able to take advantage of that. Federations, I believe this is probably of the greatest importance. Equipment, we've been able to support federations through the equipment, not as much as the needs require, because the resources are around this level and the needs are at another level. And this is one area where the engagement with the Ministry of Sports, and we are happy that the Commissioner is present listening to us making this presentation. Infrastructure and equipment is a big issue. We know that there's been the area of you are given equipment by your international federations, but when you come to Kenya, you need money for clearing, you need money for taxes. That's really an area, and I'm happy that some of us who are seated here are vying for members of parliament to go and change that particular aspect, and we believe that will be changed. Thank you. So we benefited because it can be directly through finance or through partnership, and the way for taekwondo was through partnerships. Grants, we benefited, all of us as federations, from the annual grant which has been given. We realized that You can send a team, but they cannot participate because the federation has not paid just the affiliation fees. Or they have not a basic, very basic preparation. And therefore this was just to kickstart what later government started taking up in terms of the support. This is an area where we are all hoping that can be improved as we go on because the money is needed in our federations. Since 2018, federations have been getting $500,000 for their different support. I know it's become so exciting that now people are asking for advance, and the finance team has not been able to. We've been able to provide tickets and support to go to international forums in terms of general assemblies for all our members, and we're happy that a lot of federations are taking that, and there's some indication that the fruits will start bearing in your consistent presence in these forums, and you'll start vying for some of those positions, which will be good for Kenya because there'll be representation. Content marketing, this is a new area which the whole world is embracing. Through our media team, we've been able to follow what federations are doing and be able to amplify. You all know, and I know I'm speaking this at a risk of either being misunderstood or not people getting clearly, that the sports coverage in Kenya is limited. If you look at an average news item, they give probably very few minutes, while they give loads of time to other areas, especially politics and other probably human interest stories. And therefore for sports, we have to start speaking and talking and giving our own stories. This is what the media team is trying to do, that we need to know what's happening. The people never knew there is squash, they need to start knowing there is squash happening. At right now, public service, every Saturday morning, their kids being trained. The people who don't know they're shooting and it's happening. The people who don't know there's boxing happening in Kisumu this weekend, through this media we are able to tell the story. So that's an area we invite federations to continue taking advantage of, but more importantly start developing their own content.
That is Francis Mutuku, the Secretary General of the National Olympics Committee of Kenya, and he has been speaking there at the AGM and elections of NOC Kenya. We shall be bringing you the details of that story in our subsequent bulletins. But now we come back to studio where we are talking about matters clean cooking energy, and we have been speaking with Kevin Wambugu, Client Relationship Manager at Ban Manufacturing. Kevin, could you just take us through the what you find out in terms of market research when we are talking to Kenyans about their needs?
So, Kenyans or the end users here are people who need these solutions. The demand is there, and this is because, number one, people are sensitive to the cost of living, and so any solution that in any way lowers the domestic costs or whatever, it could be food, it could be education and everything, health. People need all those, and therefore what our market research has identified is that people are realizing that the cost of cooking can be very high if not mitigated using solutions like we are offering. And so people, we've gone out there, and I'm yet to find someone who does not want a jikokoa when it is explained to them what it can do. So there is that. And then let's not forget the aspirational aspect of it. If someone can offer a solution to someone who's been cooking on a three-stone fire in a cloud of smoke, and you give them solutions that overnight, with one purchase or with one acquisition of a kunioko or a jikokoa, they are now living, cooking in a clean environment, and they feel they have made a step up. And that is why I think we talk about tiers of stoves. Improved cook stoves have tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, and I think we will be progressing as the innovations take place. So people want solutions that improve their livelihoods and that make them also feel good about their lifestyles. That is one thing that our market research has identified.
Okay.
For the sector, and for us directly as manufacturers, that discovery is also accompanied by a discovery that people want it affordable. They don't want it cheap, they want it affordable. So, and people realize that for you to have this aspirational product that has all these good benefits, it cannot come cheap. It cannot go for 500 shillings, it cannot go for 1,000 shillings and so on. But they want methods of affording that. And that is why we are saying, number one, let our government reduce, and actually not reduce, remove taxes. Some of these taxes, you know, when government acknowledged problems like HIV, it took affirmative action for that. Let it take affirmative action towards clean cooking. It will reduce the cost of raw materials, the cost of business, and then it will make us now develop very good products, highly aspirational, and affordable too. We will make them affordable. We can do this sustainably in a business environment, not NGO or anything, commercial environment, if it is made possible.
Right. So as we come to a close of this conversation, what would be your message to Kenyans in terms of their role in reducing the carbon footprint? What are the things that they can do, just even in their own homes or in their lives, to reduce their carbon footprint?
Obviously, and without, they say mwamba ngoma huvuta kwake. Number one, adapt, ajikokoa. You will reduce the amount of indoor air pollution and the carbon that we've said 25% of black carbon is emitted when cooking. So if every household were to adopt a clean cook stove, we will be out of that problem. We will have solved that problem by a big portion. Number two, if you have a space in your compound, make it your responsibility. Plant a tree. Yeah, I've seen some people who take these, let's say, months, you know, and one of my friends is a big critic of, you know, when they say like November, there's a month for prostate cancer, and what they do is they plant trees. There's that kind of thing, you know, get in the habit of doing things that are helping the ecosystem, the environment, so that when you have a clean cook stove, you plant a tree, you reduce the amount of time if it is not necessary to drive, don't drive. If you can walk. It's good for your health, it's good for the environment. We don't need hundreds of thousands of cars in traffic. I know those are behavioral change issues, but yeah, charity begins at home, and this whole discussion about how we positively impact on our environment really is has to begin with individuals and those small things. But if it is too much to walk, if it is too much to plant a tree, pata jikokoa, kuniokoa, you will have solved that problem.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us your thoughts.
Asante.
Asante sana. That is Kevin Wambugu, the Client Relationship Manager at Ban Manufacturing. We have been talking about matters clean cooking energy, and be sure to play your part in reducing the carbon footprint and generally save our planet. Now, we want to take you to a press briefing that is happening. WASU, KUSU and KUDEIHA, those are unions of public university staff. It is happening currently. Let's listen into what they have to say.
Sawa? Swali, kama hakuna swali, ndugu yangu.
Unajiintroduce, kwani unatoka na jina lako na mwisho.
Naitwa James Wanzala kutoka gazeti ya Standard. Ningependa kujua kwa zile 6 methods zenye zilitumiwa, labda kuna zile yenye mlikuwa mmepata specific zenye zilitumiwa na zikutumia kama namna gani?
As we negotiated the salary, we implemented diagonal. And only 3 universities implemented the CBA the way we negotiated it. That is Alupe University College, Masai Mara University, Turkana University. The rest came up with their own method. And I've even given you an example of one that today They don't know how they implemented this CBA. They don't know. And when you ask the finance officer how he implemented the CBA, he wants to cry. Ajui. But we are going to insist that he implements the CBA because he has the document with him.
Kwanza sijui mtuache umesema tunaweza jua we can guess kama hawata implement ile CBA kama vile mlivyoelewana. Wengine ungetuambia usituache.
Do this, don't guess. When you see the 3 SGs here, it means they will be learning. No learning in public university. Hivi karibuni. Why are you guessing? Huh? They will be learning. Huh? No, we have to follow the channels. I'm going to have my NDC. He's going to have his NDC. He's going to have his NDC. Delegates resolved. Then we are out. You know, we follow the law. NDC is the supreme organ of the union. I have my NDC on 16. Delegates are going to resolve that they want the 2017-21 CBA implemented in total. He also has the same NDC.
Could they ask?
Can they ask?
On 17.
On 17.
To make a decision.
Imagine we have NDCs on 17. All over. It means hatutakuwa na university education here in as from December or 20th. Let me come back from Mombasa.
Kama kuna swali lingine, kuna ingine? Yes, okay. Tutaimba solidarity song and then you guys will remain seated. We want to sing our anthem.
Well, that is a press briefing by the universities, public universities staff unions. They are talking about workers' welfare. The university unions include WASU, KUSU, and KUDEIHA, and yeah, that is what they have been talking about. We want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, a conversation about Kenya's debt situation. Do stay with us.
Development follows roads. Whenever a road is opened, the economic activities are always part.
Tumefurahia sana kwa president wetu juu ametutengenezea hii barabara.
Hata mashamba yetu sasa itakuwa na value, na hiyo tumeshukuru sana.
Sisi ndio tuna build the country. The future is in our hands.
Yote haya kwenye KBC Channel 1 Ijumaa saa 2:30 usiku.
Tanguliza kwa kauli kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ula an ra'iyatihi, yani kila mmoja ni mchunga na kila mmoja ataulizwa kuhusiana na kile ambacho amekichunga.
Tutaleaje watoto wetu? Je, tuwalea vipi watoto wetu? Je, watoto wetu wana maadili, ama je watoto wetu wana adabu, ama watoto wetu wana tarbia nzuri?
Welcome back. You are watching BizCheck here on Channel 1. Now, we want to have a conversation about Kenya's debt situation. Kenya's debt as at June 2021, according to the Central Bank of Kenya, stands at 7.7 trillion Kenya shillings. In comparison, in 2013, we were at 1.8 trillion. In 2017, we had gone up to 4.4. Now we are at 7.7 trillion. To discuss just what this means for the country, the economy and stability is David Kingo. He is an economist. Welcome on set, David.
Thanks a lot, Betty, for the opportunity to be around and discuss this issue of economic status at length.
Karibu sana. Just picking up from the numbers that I have read, President Uhuru Kenyatta in his State of the Nation address mentioned a lot about the infrastructure projects that the government has been able to implement over the past 8 years or 9 years or so. Not much was said about the debt situation. You know that he's used to finance these infrastructure projects. What is your thought on that?
Definitely, of course, the way the president would have structured his conversation by mentioning the issue of debt has been mentioned so much, so of course it would have created attention. But otherwise, talking about infrastructural development, of course, you know, the infrastructure is funded by debt majorly as a senior debt. So of course that means he spoke about the debt, but he talks on the angle of infrastructural development. Yes.
Right. So now, Kenya's debt as it is right now, is it sustainable?
Of course it is, based on the status of the economy after COVID-19, because the economy has exactly opened up. And we have more businesses coming up with institutions that had collapsed coming up. Remember, we talk about SME supporting like 60% or rather 50% of economy in terms of employment. And when we talk about employment, of course, we talk about people who are able to pay taxes. So the opening, if you have been able to pay when we had COVID around and business lockdowns and struggles in the economy, of course, definitely with the opening up, we'll be able to managers to pay this particular debt. The only issue that needs to be put into consideration is no borrowing again. And when you borrow, of course, we must have very prudent measures on how that particular loan needs to be utilized. That way we are able to manage. But any excessive borrowing that is not structured supported by the means of payment, of course, then it's a convice that we should not have as a country. But of course, it is sustainable based on how we project economic growth to be in the near years that are coming.
Mm-hmm. Yes. When you talk about now the borrowing issue, isn't Kenya in a catch-22 situation here?
Of course, not really, because the Kenyan economy, of course, it's very, very vibrant once it opens up and we have a conducive environment for people to perform business. The only issue that we might have that might bring a struggling environment, of course, it is the issue of election. But basically after that, of course, we'll not be at a catch-22 situation, because even the infrastructural development that was happening have been scaled down. Because if you see the pace that was there with the start of the second regime of the Jubilee government was quite high. If it was extended up to this far, then we would be saying we have a catch-22 situation. But currently, it's going to be manageable. Once we go past the election period, it becomes successful, then we have a new shift of investors, both local and international. Then this issue of borrowing is still supported by law. So of course, it will pass through Parliament and they're able to understand. If they're able to do prudent discussion on the same. So I'm not sure that we are in a situation that is happening to other East African countries. We don't ever know whether it's true or rumors, but I'm sure we are not there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. 52% of the GDP, I mean public debt to GDP, that's 52%. How can this be brought down?
Of course, it can be brought down by growth of economy, so that it can push the GDP further and extend it. Then, as I said initially, because the percentage of debt keeps on reducing as we keep on paying, of course, it is a reducing aspect or variable of the GDP model. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, because the infrastructural development that was being done, once it has a better multiplier effect. But even though the nature of infrastructure that has happened, let me just give you you an example that would push the debt to GDP down. Well, when the super highway Thika Road was done, of course, there were so many other businesses that came around it. It is really triggered a lot of investors. So we don't know these super highways that are being done maybe from the airport towards Westlands, which nature of multiplier effect are going to have, because that's what expands the basket for GDP. The loan repayment keeps on condensing. So we have the 52% not really tightening us as an economy, depending on how we peak immediately after election. Yes.
Right. The president was speaking about the double-digit growth in terms of the economy, and this was in comparison with years of growth that has been, say, in the single-digit economic growth. So, is it fair to compare this small period to all those years?
Of course not. When we have the discussion about double-digit economic growth, this one was projected in Vision 2030. And when you look at the medium-term goals for Vision 2030, of course, we are expected to be at two-digit economic growth to date. So you cannot compare that an economy that has been on one digit and we come to say cumulatively it's a two-digit growth. Of course, no. But if there was a mechanism that followed up with Vision 2030, I'm sure the Vision Delivery Secretariat is also focusing on that and keeping every ministry on toes. So we will be talking about real double-digit economic growth. But we will not really, as an economist, compare the years and say, because we've been having a 5% growth over the years that has been more or less stable, then we say we have a double-digit economic growth now. I'm sure it is not economically making sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Part of ensuring that this borrowing is sustainable, or say is brought down, is ensuring that revenue collected by KRA is at least they are meeting their targets.
Yes.
For quite a long time, KRA has been missing the targets. This year, however, things are looking up for the taxman. What is your thought on the numbers that they have been just meeting and surpassing their targets since January, is it?
Yes, of course, they have been surpassing their targets, and then we would really clap for KRA trying to reach out to people who are not being able to pay taxes. I will say this on just on layman's language, that when the banks are pushing for the population that is unbanked to be banked, and when the insurance sector is pushing for people who are not under insurance cover to be under insurance cover, KRA should also be pushing for the people who are not paying taxes also to be in the tax bracket. So we have seen they are trying to devise mechanisms that resonate with the current economic status of the people. That's why they have been able to meet their targets. So if they continue with those particular modern strategies and the strategies that speak to the public, of course they will be able to meet their target going forward. Because what might have been happening, they have been really relying on traditional taxation canons that have been there, that they have never been changed since the inception of KRA. But what we've seen in the recent past, even on the social media, told these people are trying to work around the clock to see which are these people who are supposed to be taxed but they are not taxing. And it's fact about people willing to pay tax, because Kenyans will be willing to pay tax if the aspect of accountability is there. So when we see the president trying to fight corruption, it brings an aspect of civic consciousness that this money is going to be utilized well. So let us pay taxes. So that's what I've seen KRA trying to meet their target. And of course, we expect the same going forward. They subsequently keep on meeting their targets, and of course, a good thing because it increases the revenue that we collect.
Okay, now that you brought it up, the social media issue, looking for Kenyans who may be evading taxes, how feasible is it looking at people's posts of their expensive holidays and maybe their cars and looking for them on the tax system?
I look at it in different folds. One from the marketing aspect, or rather pushing the concept of taxes. The conversation of a lifestyle should be able to, a lifestyle of someone can be connected to ability to pay tax, means basically that if KRA has not been able to push this conversation even on social media, then more people will not be able to move the tax bracket. The way people access information currently technology and digitization is one of the platform that pushes a lot of information. So when you see it at the fold of marketing, of course you see they are trying to tell people, let us pay taxes. Our lifestyles must resonate or ought to resonate with how we pay taxes. That is one thing. When you look at the marketing fold. The other aspect that maybe on their own background, they are also trying to follow up people lifestyle and trying to connect them with their what they are called nil tax payments. So at the end of it, they will have a database of people, KRA PIN, what you file vis-a-vis your lifestyle. Then they can now start the conversation of looking at those people. So from that aspect, they will have a margin. From the aspect of pushing the conversation of KRA, then it also a plus to them.
Now that they have made this public, don't you think people will stop posting or even talking about their lifestyles online, so that maybe they fear that KRA will come looking for them?
Definitely. I'm not very sure that you can run away from the taxman, because definitely you operate in a financial system that I'm sure it is integrated to an extent. They're able to know the nature of transaction that you do. You're able to deal with people who are vatable, people of course who pay taxes, so they're able to see the nature of transaction that you do. So basically running away will not be an option, apart from having an amicable way that you can be paying your taxes, or having a structured way that your business can be put together and it's able to pay taxes. So running away, I'm not sure it is an option. But anyway, we have to remain on the social media platforms. We cannot exit from the social media platform because KRA has come in. So of course, I don't see it feasible where people will be able to exit, because most of the people that I might say that are targeting because of nature of their lifestyle, they make money on those social media platforms. So exiting a social media platform because you fear KRA, I'm not sure it is going to be feasible.
Okay, so of course Kenyans should be responsible citizens and pay the taxes,
Definitely.
right? Because at the end of the day, we demand good quality services from the government, and the only way that can be met is through the taxes. Let's delve into the debt issue a little bit more. Of the 7.7 trillion, 4.1 trillion is external debt. How is Kenya managing this?
Of course, external debt is always the best option when you discuss economic models, because domestic debt, of course, does something called crowding out effect, whereby if money that was meant to be for David to go and take a loan from a commercial bank, so of course the government gives a better option, and then through treasury bills and both the commercial bank, where I go to borrow, they tell me we don't have money because we've taken to the central banks. Of course now that's what we call domestic borrowing. So basically the business that I was supposed to go and do with that loan, of course I not do. So that one has been killed by domestic borrowing. So of course the external borrowing is always the best option, because the interests are still cheaper, and the payment plans are also favorable. And there was also discussion to see whether the currency that is used in this particular loan is also favorable, based on which currency is not fluctuating as much as the economy is changing. So of course it is manageable to the extent the terms and conditions of that particular loan is better than internal borrowing, and of course the economic impact is better than internal borrowing.
Right. As we talk about Kenya being the 6th strongest economy in Africa currently, Kenyans are experiencing a high cost of living, from cost of fuel going up, electricity trickles down to everyday use, everyday goods, that they use. So here we have a strong economy, but the Kenyan is not feeling it. The balance?
Of course, the strongness of the economy is sometimes determined by the GDP, and there are many other parameters that can be used. So then we have a bigger population of people that are suffering in the midst of other people that are having soft life, because you can imagine that we all work in the same supermarket. So if you are a multi-billion business person, we also, and someone else is a 300 bob daily income person. So they all buy sugar in the same supermarket. So the cry of this 300 person wage daily will be higher than the one for, of course, the one who is a multi-billion business person will not complain about cost of living. Because the major population that is crying is the one that supports the economy, and of course we are having issues. And we look at the cost of living has increased in the recent past, extremely very high, because we have a portal that we created in the Revenue Authority, in the revenue collection, in the financing section of the economy, that is revenue collection, because when it came to COVID-19, sectioning the taxes, like pay was reduced. There also other tax changes that really reduced the revenue that was expected to be collected. So of course we have to fill that particular gap, and that's why we are seeing these particular changes in taxes that are really paining the local people. So even being a strong economy, of course, in Africa, then definitely we still have those particular changes, because it's not an economy that can be comparable to the other continent. So we will not say we are strong. Basically, we're in Africa, and the economic status of African countries. So we're still a third world country, even if we might say we are number 6 in Africa.
Okay.
Yes.
The government is doing quite something in terms of reducing the electricity cost as well as fuel, including reforms in KPLC. But the cost of fuel globally is going up. So are things likely to change for Kenyans?
Oh, definitely no. And we usually say that, just to go deeper a bit, we usually say we've both the monetary and fiscal strategies. Fiscal strategies have an impact in the long run. And fiscal strategies are like government subsidies. Government trying to subsidize the cost of fuel. Also the issue of Kenya Power trying to say they will connect as an alternative energy to production. So, but the impact will come in the long run. It might not be realized in the short run. Basically, that's the same way we build roads. We not feel the impact of the road. Of course, some roads have been constructed for the last 3 years. If we're able to feel the impact, it will come after like the next 4 years. So the impact might not be in the short run. It might take time. Then when everybody is connected to power, and they have accessibility to many other aspects that come with the accessibility to power, then we'll have an economic impact on that particular provision of power. So it's not going to be in the short run, but in the long run, the impact will be there. Because assuming everybody is connected to power in the current environment, then come in the next 2 years, the economic status is very positive. And then it is positive and you have power. So you're able to access many services that you needed to travel, to pay transport and incur any other overhead cost for you to access a certain service. But you're able to access them because you have power. So all that in the long run will have an economic impact. But in the short run, it is a cost.
So in the short term, things might be a bit the same or maybe even worse.
Definitely, and that is with physical strategies.
Right.
Yes.
The MPC the other day, they talked about an economy that's recovering. The central bank talked about an economy that's recovering. And from the start of the year, things have been getting better and better. The restrictions are fully off now. The hospitality industry has really picked up over 20% improvement, in the last 9 months or so. What is your view about this, and what is the way forward for that industry?
The hospitality industry, I've seen something extremely unique. So if people were made to consume, because you understand hospitality is a secondary good. When I mean by secondary goods, that you can be able to survive at some extent without consuming the hospitality services. So it comes at the tail end of economic growth. So basically, when people are aware that we can stay at home, we can eat at home, we can do events online, we can do events 10, we've been told we can even do an event 10 of us and the event still becomes a success. That's a very wrong signal to that particular industry. So it will require a lot of pushing and communication by the tourism industry or even the related hospitality industry to change the mentality of people, to change the wiring of people, to appreciate hospitality once more. So basically, that's the only challenge that is there. But the structure of hospitality has come up again. But the consumption of that particular service called hospitality is what still is facing the challenge, because there was an abrupt stop and disruption. The way we say supply chains are disrupted, we say we have no air movement, sea transport is curtailed, and then production channels are disturbed. When we say movement of people and times in terms of curfew, you cannot move from one city to the other, that one also affects consumption patterns of people. So if consumption of hospitality was literally majorly affected, we cannot expect people to immediately turn to the same demand that they were consuming hospitality product. So of course it will take time. Yes.
It will take time and a lot of sensitization as well.
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yes.
It's interesting that you say that hospitality is really not a basic service, because that 20% growth is largely because of the recovery from the stoppage that happened. Now, a very essential sector, the agriculture sector, humans' basic needs, food, you know. The growth was 2.9%. The sector is still struggling. What does this mean for the economy, considering just how big that sector is in driving Kenya's economy?
Basically, what happens, and what I would really mention about agriculture as a sector, there was a conversation, I guess, about, I'm not sure that it comments our African Union, about the percentage of budget that seems to be allocated to the agricultural sector in African countries.
It's the AU.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
As a country, we've not been able to meet that, and we've not really been focused on that. When you look at the economy of this country, the basket is agriculture. So if the government invests in agriculture, that's the same way they invest in infrastructure, then we would see change. And the small economic growth that you've seen happening there, it is because when people were told you cannot go to your white collar offices, we all went to the village and to do farming. Of course, that is the aspect. So assuming everybody went back to the village to do farming or agriculture, whichever, be agribusiness or even for home food consumption, then there was investment of government in terms of technology for farming. Government supported all that population that went to farming. If we went back and we found structures that would have helped us to do better farming, it would be even 10%. But it is 2% because we are using the traditional methods that still exist. So the government also need to refocus on agriculture, because when agriculture is good, many other aspects of the economy will be good. When one family is staffing on hunger, 10 people, one person staffing on hunger affect other 10 people, because we will borrow from someone, someone who would have used that money to invest, that bought you food. Yes. So if you go to a shop and take that unga on credit, that shopkeeper should have used that money to increase their business, but they gave you on credit. So one person who is suffering from hunger, of course, it affects around 10 people around. But when food is placed cheaply on the table, then there are so many other aspects that open up in the economy.
Kenya's agriculture is at an interesting, or really not too interesting, it's a sad situation, because it's highly rain-fed. Climate change is happening, the weather patterns are changing. Apart from the challenges that this sector already faces, this is now exacerbating the situation. What can be done to salvage what is left, or to make sure that we are ready for the future?
Basically, as Africans, when other world discuss about economic change, they connect economic change with other sectors of the economy that are affected by economic change. When talk about pollution, they say we're polluting using motor vehicles. This motor vehicle that we want to change, what other economic effect will it come with? In Africa, we talk about economic climate change, but we not talk about when climate is changing, what do we do with our agriculture sector to make sure it goes hand in hand with the change in for example, the rain patterns. So because the farmer down there is not even aware of climate. Of course, they have heard about climate change, but they only know rain has not come because we have cut trees. They don't know what to plant, what crops to plant when the rain pattern changes. That information literally is not there. The conversation about economic change should be, when the rain pattern has changed, what should these people plant? That is economic, that is climate change, and that is the conversation that we are not having. We will have conferences, we will have boardroom discussions, but the person who is literally affected is the farmer on the ground, and no conversation happens to that particular person. That's why it is hitting us this hard. Yeah.
We are headed to an election year. Kenya's economy tends to dip every election cycle. What are your thoughts, even as Kenyans prepare for the elections, in terms of now the economy?
Definitely, I will say that we need to look at the models that these people are trying to bring on board. But of course, I'm not very, very sure that they will execute the model that they talk, because the conversation before election, the conversation after election, of course, is really different. But we also need to focus where where stakeholders of the economy are focusing on, because they understand what is required for them to drive this economy. Because apart from voting, of course, we have to see the goodwill of the economy. So it is very important that we ensure that we have a peaceful election, and we are really focused on the goodwill of the economy, the economic movers, where they're heading to, and that we ensure we have a seamless transition. We don't have a shock. Because when you have a system that is as resistance with the economic movers, of course, then we'll have issue by the time we stabilize and have an agreement after election.
Yes. Right. So now, as we come to a close of the conversation, what would be your closing remarks as to the future of Kenya's economy and specifically the debt situation?
Of course, my view will be that let us go still back to the Vision 2030 and execute that blueprint. All these other stories by the side will not take us anywhere. We have a very strong blueprint that has taken up to this far, and we're still riding on that particular blueprint. So it is good as an economy we focus on Vision 2030 and we be responsible as stakeholders, cut down corruption, do we say legit business. Then of course the economy will open up and we'll have a positive position, and we are very optimistic that in the next 3 years Kenya will be a different country. Yes.
Thank you very much, David, for giving us your views.
Yes, thanks a lot.
That is David Kingo. He is an economist, and we have been talking about Kenya's economy at length. Actually, we have talked about the debt sustainability as well as the drivers of the economy, including hospitality and agriculture, and just what is the way forward as we head into the election year. My name is Betty Kiptum, and Anne Wangeshi is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. That is where we close a news check this morning. Do have yourself a lovely day ahead. Bye-bye.
Wewe leo iko kuja leta mimi hapa akatoka leo hakuna kazi.
Hapana basi. Okay, ni sawa tu, wacha nichape.
Kwa hivyo fadhali mshahara isipotee, lakini mwenzako aumizwe.
Of course everyone needs to eat.
Unachapwa kuchapwa tu. Ya unalipwa mshahara.
Na uwezi kuripoti kwa polisi.
Hauwezi ripoti mama. Especially nikikumbuka watoto wangu ni ndore mifasora tindo. Ni kama stairs.
Did I tie you down for someone to beat you like a broken?
Yes.
So, as you Ginene.
Ginene, what is Ginene? Si lazima uongee Kiingereza. Huyu yuko hapa atafanya hiyo kazi.
Are there some of the complications that, if unchecked during the first trimester, could spill over to the second trimester?
One of the most devastating complications of pregnancy is the high blood pressure of pregnancy.
What is normal, what is not normal?
If water breaks, so that is what we call a premature rupture of the membranes, that is not good because of two reasons. One, very high risk of infection, and high probability of delivering the baby before the due date.
How best should a woman take care of themselves?
Just attending the clinics, a balanced diet, a lot of vegetables, fruits. You still need your protein and carbohydrate or starch source. Hydrate well.
They are taking joke of what you know for reality is what is disturbing you or what is alien to you.
Yes.
So I could urge people not to use wazimu as a descriptive word, to be more polite.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think why everything is associated with madness.
Yes.
Because everything you will feel people talking about it. Even the jokes.
Yes.
The best joke people make.
It's true.
They make about
people say we are I think I'm also guilty of it, Sammy, to be honest.